The opinions of J. Michael McCoy and his guests are not necessarily the opinions of KPOG, any particular religious denomination, or any other theological institution. Thanks for listening to Mac's World Live, living free through forgiveness, live on KPOG and webcast1live.com.
Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, the 7th day of September in the Lord's year 2021, and I'm J. Michael McCoy, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Mac's World Live, living free through forgiveness. Jesus said something to me the other day. At least I think it was him. I'm not a person who... What, Frank?
In my best Ed McMahon, what did he say, Johnny?
Well, I'll tell you what he said, Ed, in a minute. But I don't want to give people the idea that I hear voices or that I have some type of special relationship with Jesus and therefore I'm on a pedestal or something. I'm not that way. That's not the way it is at all. If I do anything, I do things wrong, and then he comes up and bats me upside the head. And maybe that's what happened in this case. Maybe he was just sick and tired of me being sick and tired. But we're going to talk about one of the ways that you can deal with resentments. I put something on the Facebook today that I thought was pretty good. I'm always looking for a good meme or two, you know. And I put on the Facebook today when I was talking about this show that I was going to do today. It said, on today's Mac's World Live, living free through forgiveness, which do you choose? And the meme said, anger, resentment, jealousy, and hate, traits of the devil. Forgiveness, understanding, acceptance, and love, traits of Jesus. Which would you choose? And that got me thinking about a conversation that Jesus and I had the other day. Unfortunately, I didn't do much of the listening. I mainly did the talking. But he snuck a few things in there that are going to change things for me, big time. And so I'm going to share those some of those things with you today. I believe that there's a person out there, maybe it's you, who God is intending this message for, and I am glad to be his slave and deliver such a message. It makes me incredibly thankful that I can do that. But before we do that, things that Frank shouldn't say on the radio. If you could see him, they can see you. He's got steam coming out the end of his fingers. He's so upset. And what are you upset about, Frank? I heard you mumble under your voice something about Calvinists or something.
Oh, people that misinterpret and take Paul out of context and basically twist Romans 8, which I heard David Jeremiah the other night proclaim was the most important chapter in the entire Bible. So the other 65 books and however many chapters in Romans is chump change to David Jeremiah because Romans 8 is where it's happening.
Okay. So what do people take out of context or twist that's got your Dyer all up here?
Well, for one, in Romans 8:29, which, you ought to know this by heart, for whom he did foreknow, he did predestinate to be conformed in the image of his Son. Okay, who didn't God foreknow would be my question.
Who didn't he foreknow?
Yeah, he foreknew everybody, the wicked. So he foreknew that everyone who would believe in him or believe in him to be predestined into his image. Well, that's the first reason why people gravitate to Romans 8 and think it's all that in a bag of chips. But bounce down to the last two chapters of Romans 8, for I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, or things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, or any other creature shall be able to separate us from the promises of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Oh, wait a minute. I got to get my reading glasses checked at the Dollar Tree. That doesn't say promises. It says separate us from the love of God. So someone is either ignorantly or willfully obtusely conflating God's promises and God's love, because God loves everybody, including Satan. He loves the fallen angels. He loves the wicked, but he can't save them because they won't heed the conditions to the promises.
I may have to hang around a little bit in the 4 o'clock hour just to see you get all, messed up, because I'm not sure I agree with you. I agree with what Romans says, especially 8.
Well, do you remember Family Leader during the 2016 presidential conference? And they want what did they want you to do twice a day?
Give them money.
Close. 2 Chronicles 7:14. Pray at 7:14 in the morning, 7:14 at night.
Yeah.
Now, let me just read that to you. What's the first word in 2 Chronicles 7:14? If my people, which are called by my name, shall do 4 things: humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then the Lord will do 3 things. He will hear from heaven, he will forgive their sin, and he will heal their land. So they've... Oh, wait a minute. Quid pro quo, did I hear?
Good heavens.
Am I a little wound up today?
Yes, I'm sorry I brought it up, but I think I will hang around a little bit at 4 o'clock because somebody's got to throw some ice cold water on you. We need to do that. What was that thing they did on social media too many years ago? Ice bucket challenge. Yeah. I don't have an ice bucket, but I got a glass here from Come and Go I could dump on you.
Wasn't that about the dumbest challenge on the planet?
No, I don't think so at all. The dumbest challenge is the one that they had lately. Did you hear about that one?
I don't know.
You stack up milk crates, not cartons, crates, the plastic crates, and you have to run up them as fast as you can, and they go as tall as you are. And, of course, they move. They're not connected together. And there's been people that broke an arm or a wrist or an ankle. That's dumb. Throwing ice on yourself, that's just fun.
Oh, okay.
All right. So can you just hold your dyer for a little bit until we can get to 4?
You mean ire?
Well, I said dyer, but that's okay.
All right.
Maybe it's an ire to you. It's a dyer to me. You knew what I was talking about, right?
Yeah, sure.
Don't be a smart aleck towards me. I'm your friend, okay?
Okay.
Oh, my gosh. Now you get me all worked up. All right, so first of all, I want to say a little prayer. Gail, who is one of our absolute best listeners, just emailed me, or well, I guess he didn't email me. He came on Facebook and said that he is in a big, long line, a piece on I-35 somewhere where there's been a horrible, horrible accident. And he said maybe somebody needs some prayers. So let's you and I just for a minute. Now, if you're driving down the road, for heaven's sakes, don't close your eyes. You can close one if you want, but don't close your eyes. Papa, you know everything. You know what's going on there behind Gail on the interstate. You've already got it figured out what you're going to do, so I just want to encourage you, Lord, to do whatever it is you need to do and know that I will love you no matter what you choose. God, your ways are greater than mine and mine could ever be. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve you. With my arms around your ankles at the foot of the cross, Jesus, I love you. It's in your name I pray. Amen. All right. Okay. So I have a very bad habit, and I've had it most of my life.
Just one?
Well, maybe there's a couple, but we're just going to talk about one today. Well, I guess there is more than one that goes with this. So, my sinful nature holds resentments. Okay? My sinful nature lets the devil live rent-free in my head when it comes to resentments that I have towards people. Now, I got to tell you that my studies and research on forgiveness have taught me over the years that resentment is it's the gasoline on the fire of unforgiveness. And the reason I call unforgiveness a fire is because you can't put it out unless you choose to put it out. Does that make sense? I just don't think that resentments are as easy as other things to get rid of.
You mean you can't move past racism till you move past racism?
Sure, Frank. I guess that's true. Did you make that up, or did you hear that on the TV?
No, I say that all the time.
Oh, okay.
That's a Frankism.
Oh, good. Maybe you can have a business card with that on there. And here's the way the resentments work in my mind. I don't, I'm not a physically violent individual. I have been known to yell or talk to people sometimes in a way that I shouldn't. But quite frankly, I haven't done that in a very long time. I'm going to put my phone on silent here, sorry. I haven't done that in a very long time, and that was something that I was probably infamous for, and I use the word infamous because I don't like that. I mean, I always say that reputation is what other people say about you. It isn't about you. But if somebody ever said, boy, Matt can talk you down with that language of his, never say a swear word, never call you a bad name, but that's just a gift that God gave me that I used the wrong way. It was the wrong way to use discernment. And I'm thankful that I have now learned that, and I don't do that. In fact, I've got a little card here in my billfold that I carry all the time, or I guess it's not a billfold, it's a money bag, or what do you call it, rubber band. And I don't remember where I first saw this, but I carry this here. And for those of you watching, I'll show you that it really is true, or it is in my billfold. This is a question that I should always ask myself before I open this trap. I will tell you that it is part of the prayer that I say before the mic comes on. I pray I don't know if I've ever forgotten to pray before the mic comes on. And one of the things I pray is, God, let everything out of my mouth be truthful, kind, helpful, and necessary. Now, when you've been a radio talk show host for 40-some years, that doesn't always apply to things that I have said, especially when we were doing political talk. And that's one of the reasons I don't do political talk anymore. I mean, very rarely. Last week, Frank was all cranked up about something with Joe Biden. And I said, well, I'm going to let you do that. I don't want to do that. So you just come on the beginning of the show and you go ahead and rally or rail at in a political sense. And when you're done, then I'll get on with, talking about Jesus and loving things. And 22 hours and 37 minutes later, Frank was done, and I got to talk for a little bit about what was important to Jesus. So if it isn't truthful, kind, helpful, or necessary, I try not to say it. But here's the problem I have. Perhaps you have the same problem I do. It doesn't fall out of my mouth anymore. Not even accidentally. I'm so thankful that is a gift that God gave me. And I think that gift comes from the fact that Jesus took away my bad habit Oh, this was a bad habit too, of being offended easily. Because, see, when you're talking to somebody and you're in a discussion, conversation, maybe even a little bit of a heated argument, or maybe it's just a heated conversation, which we got into a lot on the radio when we talk politics. When I thought that I was going to lose this conversation, when I thought that maybe perhaps I'm going down the wrong stream with the boat and my oars aren't in the water, at least both of them, I would say this: well, I'm offended by what you just said. And most people would say, oh, Mac, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. Let's change subjects. And that was an awful manipulative thing that I would do. And so when Jesus mugged me, I asked him to take that sin away from me. Take that bad habit away from me. Not to tell somebody that they've offended me. I had to go one step further down the road, and that is learn not to be offended. And I can't tell you that has worked 100% of the time, but I really do feel that ire, I use your word, Frank, that ire of being offended just doesn't even flash through my mind anymore. Maybe just a little sometimes, but it seems that every time I say to myself, well, I hear myself say or want to say, well, I'm offended, Jesus kind of steps in and puts his because he doesn't want me to do that, because that's not a good Christian thing to do, I think. It's okay if we are offended by something, but it shouldn't come out of our mouth, because I think it's incredibly manipulative. With that said, even though I don't carry resentments like I used to, one of the things that the devil's always had my tongue in doing is having conversations with people. To myself, I should have started that with this. To myself, not out loud, I have conversations with people I have resentments for in my head. Now, you don't have to chime in or text me or even put something on Facebook about it, but I want you to know, with all my heart, it's very, very destructive. Very destructive for the relationship that I have with Jesus. And I never realized that, well, I'm not going to have those conversations outside of myself. I'm just going to say it to myself. So it's not going to damage anybody else. I'm just working it out. I'm talking it out. But that's not the case, is it? Not if I'm going to be honest. Not if I'm going to be honest with you, with myself, with people that I really, really care about. And I realized that this weekend because, on text, you can't tell what someone's emotion is. And I always rely on those three little letters to bring levity to it. And what are those three little levels, Frank? Or what are those three little letters that bring levity to a text? LOL. Very good, Frank. I'm proud of you. And I failed to do that. And someone that I really care about.
LOL. I didn't have my mic on.
Oh, well, leave your mic on, Frank.
Okay.
All right. Someone that I really care about, and am really growing to care about a lot, didn't hear it the way I meant it. And see, that's not on them. Yes, I know that sometimes you want to say to somebody, well, that's not how I meant it. But you're still responsible that it came out of your mouth. And it was rattling around on the inside as a good thing, as a funny thing. But that's not the way it's settled. And so I got to think. What am I can't do this.
You got thinking.
I got thinking today and yesterday that these things that roll around in the inside of my head sometimes would never fall out of my mouth because I'm just testing. I'm wondering. I'm batting it around, volleying it. And in the end, I understand what I've been thinking about, saying, doing, and how sometimes it hurts other people. And I'm sorry for that. So here's what I've decided to do. And I started this prayer at about, 11 this morning. I wasn't going to talk about this today on the air. But I always tell Jesus, listen, if there's a message you want me to say, you can change that before the mic comes on, after the mic comes on. I'm trying to be tuned in with you. For those that know me or know about my habits on the radio, I don't plan much. I mean, I'll look up Bible verses and I'll write those down or copy and paste to the letter, to the word, to the T, to the I, because I really don't want to say them out of context, because I think that's how we get in trouble, Frank, with Romans, Frank. So here's what I'm going to work on. When I'm having this conversation with myself and I'm not aware of the intent behind it, I'm going to hear Jesus say this to me. Hey, Mac, you could be spending this time talking to me. And I know you're not talking to me because I'm not really clear on what you're saying. So from now on, when you end up with a resentment, Mac, I want you to tell it to me. I don't want you to tell it to the person you're thinking about. I don't want you to tell it to the devil. I want you to tell it to me. Because I don't get enough time with you the way it is, Mac. And I want every single extra solitary second that you have in your day to spend with me. You know, it's one of the amazing things, and I'll never figure this out until Jesus and I are standing eyeball to eyeball. But isn't it amazing how he can be anywhere with anyone at any time? And you feel like he's just sitting there talking to you. Wow. That's why I call it a relationship and not a religion. I'm not a religious person. I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I don't think they ever got it. They kept looking at me like Picasso looks at me when I say something he recognizes. You know, he turns his head and his ears go up and he goes, As Scooby would say, ruh-roh. But when I'm having those type of thoughts, and this goes far beyond the thought that brought this to the table today was what happened over the weekend. I remember I used to drive down the road and have conversations with people that I've never seen or that I haven't seen in a long time. That resentment has been sitting there like moss on the north side of a rock, and that's the farthest it's gone. But when Jesus said to me today, why don't you spend that time with me? If you need to think that way, why don't you tell it to me? Because you're not telling it to anybody that can help you. You need to call my name out, Mac. Not that I'm not paying attention, but, you know, little text from me saying, hey, Jesus, I'm talking about you. I'm talking for you. I need you to listen. And then I need to shut up and listen so you can tell me how to be more like you. I think if you compared my life sometimes to the life of Jesus and his parables and his wonderful teaching, I don't think I hope I'd get at least a D-. I hope I wouldn't get an F, hardly ever. But I don't get an A+. And that's my own grading system, not his. So I guess the message that he wanted me to share with you today, I hope this is it. When you're sitting there rattling around in the 8 inches between your ears and thinking you're doing all that and more because you're not saying it out loud, you're not saying it to the person, if Jesus isn't in your head, guess who is? You know, it's kind of like that thing I always talk about. And that is, there's really only one will. This malarkey that there are 3 wills, God's, the devil's, and then yours. I've never bought into that. Never. Since Jesus mugged me. Never. And now I'm getting closer and closer to realize there's really only one will. And that's God's will. And then there's everything else. And why would I give God and Satan the same equality with me listening to what they whisper in my ears? But I don't. Because the devil says things to me in my ears that I don't know. Sometimes I think that's... yeah, I know what you're talking about, Satan. Gosh darn it, I do feel that way too. You know, the old adage about computers, and I'm sure this term was around long before computers, but it's garbage in and garbage out. And if you don't take it in, there's a lot less likelihood that you'll let it out. Now, I know I'm probably sounding like a grandpa here when I talk about this, or a spouse when I talk about this, but I'm really sorry for things I do sometimes. And most of those things have now become thought. I'm a lucky man. I always have Jesus sitting to the right side of me. And there's many times when I let go of his hand and I say, come on, let's go over here. He said, I'm not coming with you, Mac. I don't like what you're thinking. I don't like what you're going to go do. You might think it's humorous. You might think it's fun, but it's not of me. And as I'm sure you know, at least I hope you know, Jesus never walks away from us. We walk away from him. And what I've learned here in the last few days is we not only walk away from him with our feet moving one in front of the other, but the power that we have inside of our head to say and think all kinds of things. Jesus gets to grade those too. You know, I remember right after Jesus mugged me and somebody, and Frank, it may have been you, to be honest with you, said, even if you think hatred towards someone, that's breaking the commandment of thou shalt not murder.
It's the seeds of murder.
Even if you look at someone of the opposite sex with lust in your heart, you're committing adultery. Because as Frank just said, it's the seeds of what?
Hate is the seeds of murder.
And looking at someone with lust is the
seeds of adultery.
Sounded like that. My flesh doesn't like that. I ought to be thinking about whatever I want to think about. And God, if I don't let it out, if I don't say it on the radio, if I don't even say it out loud, why isn't that something that could just be between you and I?
Because Paul says we're even supposed to bring our thoughts into subjection to him.
So here's what I am going to ask you to pray about. First of all, pray for me, because I love it when Jesus teaches me things. Sometimes they're fun things. Sometimes there's things that I can share with you on the radio or even in a sermon or a Bible teaching class. But sometimes it's like that old adjective. Thank you.
Or adage.
That when Jesus is taking your bad habits away from you, your sinful nature away from you, your lousy characteristics, your idols, sometimes he just has to whisper it in your ear and you go, oh, that's right, I don't want that. Sometimes you feel that slap on the back of your head like Mark Harmon always does when he's on CSI. But sometimes we let it out. Maybe it's a text. Maybe it's an email. Sometimes it's just feeling sorry for yourself. I know sometimes it's me feeling sorry for myself. So as you walk this life with Christ, especially that walk when you're trying to forgive someone or you're trying to forgive yourself, don't be so hard on yourself. And I'm saying that to me right now. Don't think that I'm a bowl of nuts and everything else if I can ramble through this horrible thing I might say to somebody. And I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm just going to think it. And sometimes those thoughts are like acid pouring into our brains because I put the bottle above my head. Be more love than like. Be more of a servant leader rather than one of the guys or one of the gals. Think about those disciples that we're supposed to be like, want to be like. Pray the day we get to meet them eyeball to eyeball. Stephen, who was the first martyr, he preached a sermon, a mighty sermon. And there was Saul. There were a bunch of Pharisees. And they decided that they would throw stones at him. And it killed him. Like John, who they tried to kill over and over and over. And the legend is that he was even burned in oil or boiled in oil. And it kind of like God protected the three from the lion in the lion's den.
Fiery furnace.
The fiery furnace? Oh, you just said that. God kept John alive so his last revelation to you and I would be written. Even the book of Jude, it's the shortest book in the Bible. I don't even think it's 2 pages. But Jude was Jesus' brother. And I don't mean like Frank's my brother. I mean that they had the same mother, Mary. And even Jude didn't see who Christ was, even though he grew up with him and spent 33 years with him. I got to be better at recognizing who Jesus is, not only within other people, but within myself. When you're sitting there rattling around, arguing with somebody in your mind, and you think, well, I'm just talking to myself. Remember, Jesus is always listening. We need to be that honest with ourselves about that relationship that we desire with Jesus. It isn't just a relationship that we have for 59 minutes on Sabbath or Sunday or whatever day a week. It isn't just a devotional that we read, a song, an uplifting song that we hear on the radio. Jesus wants it all the time. And doesn't he deserve that? After everything he's done for us, for heaven's sakes, he died for those stinking little sins that we don't even think about. He still died for those. A relationship with Jesus is the most valued relationship he has in his world. Shouldn't it be that important to us? Amen. Amen. Tomorrow I'm going to have a rare guest on. As you know, I don't talk a lot about missions or going on a mission. He has yet to call me on something like that. Now, I remember I said that once on the radio, and a lady called in, a female listener called in and said, Mac, you're in a mission every day when you come on the radio. And that one little statement of hers changed the way I thought about my ministry. Well, it didn't help me build it up. It helped me be humble and teachable and more like him. So whatever it's going to take for you to stop those arguments in your head, do it. And the other day I met a young man who has a friend who has a ministry in another part of the world that I've never heard of. And I was so impressed by this story that I invited him and Pastor Glenn Olson on tomorrow, because that's how I met this man, was through Pastor Olson. And we're going to talk about what that means to him to work for Jesus in this way. You know, sometimes I think I work hard for Jesus. I mean, I do a radio show 4 or 5 times a week. I preach. I teach. I listen to sermons. But that's an easy ride. The guy you're going to meet tomorrow, I want to be like him when I grow up. And you'll meet him tomorrow, right here. Same bat time, same bat station. If I haven't told you how much I love this show, it's because you allow me to do it every day, and it means a lot to me. Frank and I will be back in about 20 minutes, so I can hear steam come out of his ears as he criticizes the Calvinists. Ooh, this could be fun. Maybe I'll get some popcorn. Want to join us? It's right here on KPOG 102.9 and webcast1live.com.